evening and welcome to Elon Local News' Election Center 2014. I'm Gary Grumbach, joined by Corey Shegda. From 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., North Carolina voters cast their ballots in today's primary election. And Elon Local News will be bringing you live coverage as results and the votes are counted.
From a highly anticipated U.S. Senate race to a local congressional election set to replace a 15-term congressman, this election has no shortage of political matchups, and Elon Local News is your home for all the coverage. You can also follow us on Twitter at elonlocalnews.com for the up-to-the-minute results. If you want to join the conversation, tweet using the hashtag ELN election, and you may see your comments on air.
The biggest race we're following tonight is the Republican primary for U.S. Senate. Going into today's primaries for the GOP side, one Republican candidate held the lead in polling. Tom Tillis, the current Speaker of the House in North Carolina, led the polls at 46% on April 29th, according to public policy polling. Tillis needs at least 40% of the vote to be the Republicans' ballot choice for the general election in November. Unlike his Democratic rival, Tillis is fairly new to the political playing field. He joined North Carolina's General Assembly just 8 years ago in 2006. The Republican Speaker of the House wants to repeal Obamacare, is in favor of the Second Amendment, opposes gay marriage, and supports private sector over big government. The most recent Elon poll found that 63% of voters had heard of Tillis and 21% had favorable impressions of the House Speaker. Tillis needs at least 40% of the vote to be the Republicans' ballot choice for the general election in November. Unlike his Democratic rival, Tillis is fairly new to the political playing field. He joined the election just 8 years ago in 2006. So we have interesting points on voter turnout here. In 2010, voter turnout was about 9%, 10%, but in 2012, it shot up to 35%. What are your thoughts about that, the voter turnout for this year? What do you think it's going to be?
Well, we heard that it's supposed to be about 2010, which is kind of surprising, but I am hoping a little bit more, but it always is on and off depending whether or not it's an on or an off year for presidential elections, and it is an off year, so who knows what the turnout might be.
So we're looking at right now on the maps. It says so far Kay Hagan has 9,877 votes, and that's the last updated at 8 o'clock, so about 2 minutes ago. And that's in the Democratic side. And Tom Tillis has 46.9. Like we said, he needs 40% of the vote for a runoff not to occur. But we also have Dr. Greg Brannon, and he hopes to claim the title being a U.S. Senator by 2015. Brannon is a North Carolina physician who is being endorsed by Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky and Utah Senator Mike Lee. Brannon polled at 20% in the same April 29th survey, where like Tillis, the conservative candidate hopes to repeal Obamacare. Brennan's position also includes lowering taxes, supporting traditional marriage, and backs free market economics rather than government regulation. 21% of those asked in April's Elon poll had heard of Brannon. Brannon is a North Carolina physician who was being endorsed by Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, like we said, and Utah Senator Mike Lee. So we're taking a look now at the House. You have that map up? Cool.
Oh, I do.
Technology is a wonderful thing. You have the North Carolina House map up for the Democrats. Right now, Kay Hagan, for the Senate, sorry. For the Democrats, we're going to click on 6th District, because that's where we are here, Elon, North Carolina. And we've got 0% reporting, so there's 241 precincts reporting in the 6th District, and 0 of them are reporting right now. But we're going to check on the Senate again. For Republicans, we got just over 10,000 votes for Tom Tillis. Greg Brannon is at 25.6%. And Mark Harris is at 16.6%.
So it's interesting to see how Greg Brannon is pulling ahead. Earlier, I saw a tweet from the News Observer that said that Brannon and Harris were in dead heat, and now it seems like he's pulling ahead. But it really is so important that Tom Tillis does get that 40% over so that you don't run into a runoff. And I'm just so looking forward to talk to our correspondents who actually are with Tom Tillis and the other candidates to see how they're doing and get those live updates.
And so the Elon polls, Jason Husser, I'm just reading his tweets right now. He's saying that just over 17% of precincts are reporting at the SBE website, which is the State Board of Elections website. So that's really interesting, saying it at just about 20 minutes ago. Only 17% was reporting. It's interesting how they all come in so slowly with it's all electronic now, but still they come in pretty slowly. Let's see what's going on the election map. We've got the House in the 6th District in Alamance County. Let's check out Alamance County here. And we've got still 0% reporting, but we've got lots to talk about here on the election show. And we've got Brannon's positions, Greg Brannon. He's the OBGYN, which is crazy to think that a doctor can now turn into a state senator.
And he was also the first in his family to actually attend college. And he went to the University of California and then went to grad school elsewhere. But I just think it's so interesting that a lot of these candidates seem to be self-made men, and not a lot of them have come from political families. So it's just really interesting to hear. I was reading through Brannon's website, and it was a lot of talking about how he's self-made and how he's just very excited to make a lot of changes.
And it's also interesting, Greg Brannon is a Tea Party activist, so it's interesting to see his deal with the primary influence. You know, Tea Party is a very, very powerful group of people who, when they believe something, they go for it. Mm-hmm. And so in the primaries, it's interesting to see how much influence they will have on the general population of North Carolina when voting, related to the general election in November. So, you know, the whole nationally, it has a lot of influence, but it's interesting state by state what will happen.
So I just heard that we are going to toss to our Brianna McClelland, who is in Charlotte right now. So what do we have for you? Oh, in just 1 second, we are pulling up that shot right now. We cannot wait to see her up there. I know she has some awesome and insightful things to say. All right, and we're going to cue to her right now.
And we're back. We had some technical difficulties with Bree, but she's there in Charlotte. We saw her, so we're just going to get her audio there in a second. But we're interesting because Politico, you know, the political website Politico, has named Wake County, North Carolina, the most important county to watch in the country today. So that's interesting because it's due to a Republican-leaning swing state like North Carolina. Mm-hmm. This could decide the Senate majority for the entire country based on what happens in Wake County. And
what's really interesting is that Wake County is actually the second biggest in North Carolina, but they said they actually have the most votes. So it really is so important with this election.
Yeah, and you know, they say that history repeats themselves when it's talking about Wake County. In 2008, Senator Kay Hagan took slightly more than 54% of the two-party vote against Dole, who she was running against, Elizabeth Dole. And then 2 years later, in 2010, incumbent Richard Burr, performed a little bit better than Hagan and got 56% of the two-party vote. So we'll see what happens here. But the winner of each of those state elections also won Raleigh's Wake County, which is why Wake is so big, especially since Florida and Ohio aren't having the Senate elections this year.
Definitely interesting. And Hagan really needs to win again, but not just by a few points, which would be a challenge given the significant turnout problems due to the Democrats that they face during the midterms.
So what are we on to next here? Let's check the election map. And we've got Alamance County here. We're still reporting 0 precincts for the Senate, but Kay Hagan is now up at 72.9% with just under 15,000 votes in, and for the GOP, Tom Tillis is just over 12,000 votes now, so it's 46.5%. What's interesting is that number keeps getting closer to that 40 mark. We'll see if he stays above it. Greg Brannon now at even 26%.
All right, and we're going to toss to our own Sky Counts, who is going to give us a social media update.
Gary and Corey, it's very interesting to see how our candidates are using social media to really get voters to the polls tonight. The polls did close at 7:30, and I have been following a lot of their tweets. Let's look at Greg Brannon. So he's been using the hashtag Dragon Slayer. He says, polls close at 7:30. Please go vote so I can slay some dragons. Find your location. And he gives a link to different locations where voters can go to vote. So also, let's look at Tom Tillis's Facebook page. It looks like he posted yesterday, Mitt Romney endorsed my campaign saying, I am convinced by his record of conservative results that he is the right candidate to help Republicans win a majority in the U.S. Senate in 2014. I urge North Carolinians to support Tom Tillis on May 6th. So it's just very interesting to see how all the candidates are really using social media as a tool to campaign themselves, get voters to the polls. And following the Times News, Anna Johnson tweeted, she's a reporter from the Times News. According to the Times News, voter turnout was 9.1% in the 2010 primary. It was 32.59% in the presidential 2012 primary. So seeing that major gap in voter turnout, I'm going to toss back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you so much, Sky. You're great. We'll be sure to check back in with you later. Staying on the topic of social media, it's interesting how, whether it's news personalities, whether it's politicians, or just students like us just trying to put on a newscast here, we are using social media big time. There's tweets using hashtag #NCPoll, tweets using hashtag, what were some of the other hashtags, Sky?
We had
Hashtag Dragon Slayer, and reporters from across the state are just trying to get the information out as fast as they can, because these days Twitter's the way to do it.
That's really where you find most of your information now. We're going to have a quick commercial break, and we'll be back to you with more election results coming up soon.
Welcome back to Elon Local News' special coverage of election 2014. We're following the races and bringing you the results. Polls closed less than an hour ago. Let's take a look at what's come in so far. So we know Paige Peruso, our reporter Paige Peruso, is live at the Greg Brannon camp in Raleigh, and
So
she's
exciting.
she's going to talk to us a little bit about what's going on there. But first, let's give a quick background of who Greg Brannon is for our viewers. Greg Brannon is the OBGYN
Self-starter.
who is running for Senate, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Running for the Republicans. So, as I said earlier, and actually, we have Paige Peruso ready for us. Paige, what do you see out there?
Hi, and have you started OBGYN practice? And it's going to be an influential member of the community. There's a lot of support here. We're waiting for the results now, but right now it's going great. Stay tuned for more on Brandon's campaign right here live in Raleigh. I'm Paige Peruso. Back to you guys.
She was there.
So for an update on today's local races in Alamance County, let's go live with Al Drago, who's at the Alamance County Board of Elections in Graham. Al is not actually there, but he is in Graham right now. We will get him on video in just a minute. But first, we're going to talk about a quick update of what's going on in North Carolina Senate races. In the Senate on the Democratic side, it's 72.3% for Kay Hagan. That's 28,000 votes coming in. And on the Republican side, it's 46.9%. So that number hasn't really changed much recently. He's just over 19,000 votes now.
And we really haven't seen much changes with Will Stewart and Ernest Reeves. They stayed pretty much the same the entire time. Will Stewart staying at about 17%, Ernest Reeves staying at about 9-10%. But actually, we are going to talk to Al Draco now in Graham. Al, what's going on over there?
Thanks, guys. I'm here at the Alamance County Board of Elections in downtown Graham right now, where all the votes across the county are being turned in. There were 37 polls in Alamance County, and so far, the 17th precinct has just turned in their vote. We're just under halfway through with the votes counting in, and within the hour, most of the votes should be in. We're going to throw it back to you guys, but here at the Alamance County Board of Elections, I'm Al Drago. Back in the studio to you guys.
Shifting over to the local congressional race, for the first time in 30 years, North Carolina's 6th district will be represented by a new representative in Congress. 84-year-old Congressman Howard Coble is retiring, opening the door to a crowded Republican primary. 9 separate candidates are running for the nomination.
So there are a number of candidates from Greensboro, including Mike Causey, Zach Matheny, and Mark Walker, and Bruce Von Cannon. From Jamestown, North Carolina, Compton Koff and Jep Phillips. At another university town down the road, High Point, comes Don Webb. And finally, from Eden and Mayodan, respectively, comes Phil Berger Jr. and junior candidate Charlie Sutherland.
2 Democrats are seeking the nomination of their party to represent the 6th district. The 2 candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for state Congress are Bruce Davis and Laura Field. Davis is a High Point native who works as Guilford County's commissioner. He previously served 20 years in the Marine Corps and is the founder and president of Kid Appeal Learning Center, a child care facility. Running against Davis is Laura Field, who works as the vice president and general counsel for the University of North Carolina's campus system. Field is from Hurdle Mills, North Carolina, and is a volunteer for the Special Olympics.
So it's time for us to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll have more coverage and results from today's primary. But first, we're going to talk a little bit, because not commercial yet, we're going to talk a little bit. We do have information that Thom Tillis did win Alamance County,
awesome.
50% to 23 to 20%, and that Mark Walker won Alamance County's vote of North Carolina District 6, 32 to 28% against Berger. And now we're going to our reporter Paige Peruso, who is at the Brannon camp in Raleigh. Paige, what's going on?
Yep.
Is still there, but she's not ready for us. So so we're going to go to the fact that the races have not been officially called yet, but in Alamance County, Thom Tillis and Mark Walker are in the lead. Let's check back to our election map here, and we've got nearly, there must be a lot of people on here. It's taking a little bit to load here. We got
Thom Tillis still at 46.9%, Greg Brennan at 24.7%, and Mark Harris at 17.2% still. That is for the Republicans. For Kay Hagan, oh wow, her approval ratings have shot up almost 10%, at 81.2% now. Will Stewart at 11.6% and Ernest Reese at 7.1%. All right, so now I think we have Paige working. Paige, what is going on over there?
Hi, I'm Paige Peruso, and I'm in downtown Raleigh at Greg Brannon's campaign headquarters. Right now, as we wait for the results, attitudes are quite positive here. He has a lot of support right here in Raleigh, but even more in Cary, where he started his OBGYN practice and has become an influential member of the community. Stay tuned here and find out what results and what happened tonight on election night. I'm Paige Peruso in downtown Raleigh. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Paige. And now we're going to have another commercial break, but we'll be right back with some more election updates.
And you can check out our coverage on hashtag ELN election on Twitter. Also, using Twitter is a great way to stay updated with the races as we call them.
Exactly.
Have a good day. We'll be right back.
If you drive buzzed,
Welcome back to the show. As we bring you the primary results, let's go over some of the new results that were introduced today for voting in North Carolina. The State Center for Voter Education broke down some of the major differences that came with today's election. First, to the 2014 elections, a cut to early voting. In the last primaries, North Carolina had 17 days of early voting. This year, they had just 10. While the polls in 2014 were open for the same number of hours as they were in 2010, the early voting was only open April 24th to May 3rd. The state this year got rid of the same-day registration. In the past elections, North Carolina residents could register and then vote on the same days the polls were open. This year's voters had to be registered April 11th, 25 days before the primaries. Voters also didn't have the option of straight ticket voting this year. Previously, a voter could mark their political party on their ticket and automatically cast a vote in every race for their party's candidate. This year, North Carolina had to vote for each individual race. Those are just a few changes you can find at the polls today. So looking at all the information we have right here, we see that actually Clay Aiken is leading the polls right now. On my computer, I see 4,196. Keith Crisco with only 3,274. What do you think about that?
Well, he started as an American Idol, and now he's going to be an American House of Representative, possibly. He's up by just over 1,000 votes. To second place is right now, still precincts are reporting, 93 of the 156 precincts are reporting. And that's 47% for Clay Aiken and 36.75% for Keith Crisco. And Tony Morris comes in third right now with less than half reporting, with just over 1,000 votes in District 2. We're now going to go to Brianna McClelland, who's in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the Thom Tillis camp. Bree, what can you tell us?
Thanks, guys. As you can see behind me, the room is filled with at least 100 guests here in support of Mr. Tillis. We have young children, grown adults, even grandparents, all here in support of him and what he stands for. We're in Charlotte at the Omni Hotel, and like I said, the room is absolutely filled. It's a great atmosphere. Everyone is positive and really excited to see the outcomes and see if Mr. Tillis has what it takes to get this primary vote.
94,000, that's how many eligible voters Alamance County had for this year's primary elections. North Carolina State Board of Elections say that Alamance County is home for more than 39,000 registered Democrats. Another 31,000 makes up the county's Republican voters, which leaves roughly 23,000 unaffiliated voters. Alamance also has a small portion of Libertarian voters who account for roughly 250 votes. Of the total 94,000, there are roughly 50,000 female voters and more than 40,000 male voters.
But Alamance is just one of the 100 counties in North Carolina. Here's what you need to know about voters across the state. According to the State Board of Elections, North Carolina has roughly 6.5 million potential voters. Of that 6.5 million, around 2.8 million are registered Democrats, and the Republican population comes in at nearly 2 million voters, while the unaffiliated voters account for around 1.7 million. Libertarians make up the smallest margin of the vote of about 23,000. As for demographics, nearly 3.5 million of North Carolina's voting population are female, while the other 3 million are male.
So now we're going to toss to a Jason Husser interview that we had previously done.
I'm joined now by Dr. Jason Husser, who is the Assistant Director of the Elon Poll and teaches political science here at Elon. Dr. Husser, let me ask you, we'll start with the Senate race since that's the biggest race of the night. What is the most interesting storyline, in your opinion, that's come out of the Senate primary, specifically to Republicans?
In many ways, the most interesting storyline is about the strength of the Tea Party. We saw in 2010 that the Tea Party was extremely strong within the Republican Party. Now that strength doesn't seem quite so powerful. There's a clear Tea Party candidate, Greg Brannon, who does not look like he's doing that great in the polls.
Now, is that because you think that the Tea Party has, the Americans have soured to the taste of the Tea Party, or that they like Democrats or more mainstream policies better? What is the reason for that?
There's some reaction that perhaps some elections were lost due to the Tea Party movement. There's probably some resentment about the 2012 election loss.
Within the Republican Party.
Within the Republican Party. And then there's just a different issue emphasis right now in the country. So if you look at what people are saying the most important issue, it's not taxes as much. It's still the economy, but the Affordable Care Act has shot up in rankings in terms of more important issues. That was not traditionally a Tea Party movement. This focus on taxes has waned in large part because tax reform has been taken off the table since the fiscal cliff.
Now, you brought up the Affordable Care Act, so let me ask you, where does that poll now with Americans? Obviously, it was unpopular when it was first rolled out. Some of the issues seem to be ironed out. How are Americans reacting to it now?
It's still overall fairly unpopular, but the Affordable Care Act is becoming more popular over time, particularly among Democrats. Republicans are still very much opposed to Obamacare, but Democrats have softened to it, especially since many of the kinks in the system have been worked out.
So is it basically a talking point in every Republican campaign, primary or otherwise, throughout the country right now is repeal Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act?
The Affordable Care Act is a talking point in every single Republican election all across the country right now. It's not going to go away anytime soon. By 2016, it will still be an issue, maybe not quite as big of an issue, but the narrative in 2014 for the next 6 months is going to be anti-Obamacare.
And obviously, Senator Hagan, the Democratic incumbent, voted for Obamacare. How is that going to hold her back leading into the general election in November, or do you think there will be enough shift in feelings? You said it's slowly getting more popular. How will that play into the general election?
It's hard to know exactly what's going to happen in the future, but we did ask in the last Elon poll whether or not Senator Hagan's voting in favor of the ACA made them more or less likely to vote for it. There was a good many who said it made them more likely, but there were even more who said that it would make them less likely. So right now, her relationship with the ACA is hurting her electorally. It will be interesting to see what happens over the summer as more people enroll, determine just what the ACA means for this election.
And across the state, change topics a little bit, across the state tonight, what are some other races that people should be paying attention to?
Two big races to pay attention to are the District 6 primary and the District 12 primary.
Which we're in right now, District 6,
Right.
correct?
District 12 is formerly Mel Watt's district. It's the most gerrymandered district in the country. Those races are particularly important because they're competitive primaries, and the person who wins that primary basically wins the election. Those are districts that are so safe, one for Republicans, one for Democrats, that whoever wins this primary is going to have the election in November.
So the District 6 primary tonight for Howard Coble's seat, correct?
Right.
He's stepping down. The Republican nominee will be the clear favorite heading into November.
Very much so. There's still, some very remote chance that a Democrat could somehow win that district, but it's very unlikely.
And it's a very crowded Republican field, probably for that reason. I believe there's 9 candidates running for the nomination. I mean, you mentioned earlier that these races are very unpredictable, but do you see any clear favorite or do you have any predictions?
It does seem that Berger has some advantage in this race. He has more name recognition in many ways than other candidates, largely due to his dad. If he takes 40%, he won't have to go again, but I doubt that he gets a runoff level.
And explain how the runoff process works real quickly, just so we
So
know.
those who don't get 40% or more of the vote will be forced to go into a runoff with the next highest vote getter. These things can be unpredictable. You can have a person who clearly gets the most votes, but then gets into a runoff, and the coalition shifts and they don't do that well. So whatever polling numbers you've seen prior to this primary day will change from here on out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll hear more from Dr. Husser later in the program. Thank you.
Thanks.
So we do have some races to call here. The U.S. Senate Democratic race has been clinched, if you will, by Kay Hagan, Senator Kay Hagan. That was expected, but she did come in with 84% of the vote, and second place was Will Stewart at about 9%, and that's still with 1,500 precincts reported, and about 2,700 precincts are reported out of the 2,700 precincts that are reported.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is so interesting. And we actually have Al Draco and Graham, and we're going to toss to you right now.
Thanks, guys. Things are really starting to pick up here in Graham, as now 31 as we have walking right by me out of the 37 polling stations have now turned in their votes. Things are in full swing, and the election officials are hard at work. Just a moment ago, cars were backed up all the way onto Maple Street here in downtown Graham as they're waiting to report their numbers. Now, once the votes are inside, they're verified for accuracy before being returned and reported to the state. Now, precinct workers are looking tired for the most part, but excited after a long day's work, as now they're hitting the 15-hour mark of the day as polls opened at 6:30 this morning. But many of the workers I talked to told me that they started setting up just after 5 a.m. Now we have a few results coming in live for me right here. Now for the U.S. Senate, I have Tom Tillis just for Alamance County with 50.07% of the votes. And we're gonna wrap it up and throw it back to you guys in the studio. Here in Graham, I'm Al Drago.
So thank you so much, Al. That was fantastic. Great reporting there from photographer Al Drago. And we're now going to talk a little bit about Phil Berger Jr., who is running against Mark Walker and Bruce Von Cannon for House of Representatives. Again, they need 40% to avoid a runoff election. Runoffs are really costly, and no candidate can really afford that.
Things are getting so close right now, with Phil Berger at only 33.72% and Mark Walker at 24.95%, Bruce Von Cannon at 11.23%. It's a very tight race right now.
It's going to be a toss-up for the Republicans, but in District 6 for the Democrats, it's also really close. Just less than 1,000 votes separate Laura Field from Bruce Davis. So that's at 55 to 54%, but really that's only 178 out of the 241 precincts reporting. So that's really something that is going to come out within the next half hour, hopefully, so we can be here to report it. Phil Berger, Mark Walker, they are separated by about 11%. And Field and Davis on the Democratic side are separated by 11% as well. Now we're going to toss it over to our social media guru, Sky Cowens. Sky, what do you have for us right now?
Thanks, Gary. So you saw that interview earlier with Jason Husser, and I've actually been following him on Twitter tonight. He's been actively tweeting. He is the assistant director of the Elon poll. He tweeted, "Looks decent that Tom Tillis takes it without runoff, but still too soon to say." He also is tweeting about some Elon poll results. Number one reason voters favorable of Tom Tillis equals will do a good job. Number one reason voters disapprove of Kay Hagan equals Obamacare. WFMY has been tweeting at him. He also said number one reason voters approve of Kay Hagan equals working for the average person. Today is National Teacher Appreciation Day, and Kay Hagan on her Facebook page did a little post, thanking teachers in North Carolina for going the extra mile every day so kids can have a good education. And she recently posted on Twitter about 3 hours ago on hashtag Teacher Appreciation Day. Don't forget, Tom Tillis picked tax cuts for wealthy over NC teachers and students. So we're seeing a little back and forth on Twitter and Facebook between the candidates.
You know, it's really interesting that on Twitter, the candidates and the reporters are seeing what's going on Twitter compared to the Board of Elections website, which is the official count here. But on Twitter, they just go with whatever happens and the flip-flopping numbers, according to one of the reporters from WBTV. There's flip-flopping of numbers on the Board of Elections website, but Twitter is reporting as it happens, so it's going back and forth depending on what the reports are. So it's interesting how the accuracy may not be all there even with this electronic voting.
And it's really crazy how important social media is to everything we do now. I mean, that's where I get most of my information, that's where I get most of my news, and now we're just following here and we are seeing so much happening. So we're gonna take another break.
To your home for primary election 2014. This is your place to find out all the results for Alamance County and beyond. So first we're going to talk about some really interesting mess-ups from the Board of Election here. There's confusion with the National Board of Election website and the North Carolina one specifically. Mecklenburg County accidentally listed that all precincts are reported, and the Board of Elections director for Mecklenburg County said he can guarantee that not all ballots have been counted. This has been blowing up on Twitter. People use humor on Twitter. They're saying things like, there was less votes now than there were 2 minutes ago, and Dr. Michael Blitzer of Catawba College is comparing this to Florida 2000, which was a huge issue with the hanging chads and whatnot. So far, there are 15 precincts reported in Mecklenburg, not 195 that was previously listed on the website.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm looking at Twitter as well right now, and Molly Grantham from WBTV I'm watching flip-flopping numbers on the Board of Elections website, scratching my head. I'm watching Twitter, laughing. So this really is a big problem. It is, people need to see that. But one candidate for Congress has closer ties to Elon than you actually think. So Zach Matheny, one of the Republicans' candidate running for the 6th district, is a brother of Matt Matheny, the men's head basketball coach here at Elon. The brothers are natives from Statesville, North Carolina, with Zach graduating from NC State University in 1996 and Matt graduating from Davidson University in 1992. Both played Division I basketball at their alma maters. The brothers stopped by our studio last week and gave their thoughts on the race.
You know, I don't give him advice on campaign and politics, but he gives me a lot of advice on,
only when they win.
He's run what I think, and I don't know a lot about politics, and I don't know a lot about campaigning, but I think he's run a tremendous campaign, and he definitely doesn't need advice from me. But, brothers can give advice whether it's asked for or not. So we occasionally go back and forth a little bit.
I'll tell you what's the best is when Elon's got a basketball game or I know he's traveling, it's just to give him a text message or a phone call that says, hey, go get him, take it home, win the game tonight, or he'll give me a text message, hey, just thinking about you, go out there and knock on some doors, finish strong.
And now we're going to talk to our Brianna McClellan. Let's see what's going on over there, Bree.
Still absolutely buzzing. There is food, there are drinks. Everyone is just really celebrating for this person. Everyone is about 15 and 9, and everyone's still waiting to hear the final call, but there's no reason to not celebrate earlier. I just heard a supporter of Mr. Taylor's come up to a friend and say, I just want to call it now that race day. As a child, he's like, it's still like, this party is going to continue for as long as they want to.
Sorry about those audio difficulties. We hope we can still understand Bree over there in Charlotte. But what's interesting is that all these Elon connections that we were talking about, the head coach Matt Matheny is the brother of Zach Matheny. There's so many Elon students. Elon, especially around these times with primaries, Elon gets so politically minded. I know Gabe Corbett is a freshman here at Elon, and he's campaign manager for one of the Alamance County school boards on the ballot in November, Jeremy Teeter. It's just really interesting to see how involved people get in the community.
It really is very cool to see, and I know there's students volunteering different places and really wanting to get involved in Alamance and Elon. I'm a tour guide, and we always talk about how Elon's students are so socially engaged. They really, you get onto campus, and within 5 minutes, you're already over-involved. So.
Right, and the Elon poll, we talked to Dr. Jason Husser before. The Elon poll is used across the state and across the country to measure how people in North Carolina and Alamance County specifically are feeling about different stories and different ideas. We do have some breaking news here. John Boehner coasted to victory in Ohio's 8th District Republican primary. Boehner had 74% of the vote against 3 other candidates, and while never in danger, Boehner did dip into his multi-million dollar war chest to air his first TV ads in 4 years. That's reminding Republicans to vote. So that apparently worked for him. Commercial ads do work for people, and that did work out well for John Boehner.
So in this election, we really have had no shortage of unique political stories. Let's take a look at some of the more unusual candidates of 2014.
So if you're a reality TV show fan, you might recognize a familiar face running in the 2nd Congressional District of North Carolina. Clay Aiken, as we mentioned before, of American Idol fame, is hoping North Carolinians will now cast votes for his political views. Aiken faces off against fellow Democrats Keith Crisco, a textile businessman, and Toni Morris, a family counselor. All 3 are hoping to compete for Republican incumbent Ray Elmer's seat in state Congress. Aiken was American Idol Season 2 runner-up to Ruben Studdard, and now Studdard is endorsing former castmates' political career. Aiken's other endorsements include former U.S. Ambassador to Barbados, Jane Hyde, and the North Carolina Association of Educators. If the former singer wins the primary, he will face Republican incumbent Elmers in the general election in November. Elmers won re-election in 2012 with 56% of the vote, according to CNN polling.
You might know him as Steve Wiles, a conservative candidate for North Carolina, state senator, but according to a report from Winston-Salem Journal, he was once known as Miss Mona Sinclair. According to the report, Wiles served as a female impersonator and drag queen at EMC and now closed gay-friendly lounge, Club Audacity from 2002 to 2010. Wiles, who campaigned primarily on his support of North Carolina's marriage amendment, previously denied his affiliation with the lounge before admitting that the role was just something that I did not want to continue. Wiles also served as a promoter for the 2011 Miss Gay America pageant before being dismissed for conduct unbecoming of the organization. The conservative is up against 2 other GOP conservatives and competitive primary.
So now we're going to toss to Al Drago, who's at the Alamance County Board of Elections in Graham, North Carolina. Al, what do you have for us?
Thanks, guys. As of this moment, all 37 voting precincts have reported their votes, but now they wait in line right behind me to turn in the rest of their election materials. Now, it's only 8:50, now 8:51, but I can remember back in 2012 when I was here at the very same place, and this time, not even half of the votes have been turned in. Now, it looks like we have some new numbers for you in our local races. It appears that Pat Nadolski has pulled away from Andrew Hanford with 60.67% of the votes over Hanford's 39.33%. And in the Supreme Court Associate Justice race, it's still pretty close between Eric Levinson with 43.81% of the votes and Robin Hudson right behind him with 37.12%. We'll continue to have the latest numbers here from the Alamance County Board of Elections. I'm Al Drago. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks so much, Al. We're currently looking at the official State Board of Elections website, which is telling us that 26.78 of the precincts across the state are in and reporting. That's 710 out of more than 2,500. But now that means only 6.4% of the entire voting population of North Carolina has voted or has been ballots have cast so far. This is only 1/4, but still you can extrapolate, and that's not a big number.
Exactly. So we're actually going to toss to another break, but we'll be right back with some more updates about what's going on in the election coming up soon.
Welcome back to Elon Local News' North Carolina primary coverage 2014. I'm Gary Grumbach with Corey Shegda here, and now we're going to talk about some problems. You know, it's always good to not believe everything you read online. Tonight's a perfect example of that.
It's crazy. You go on the North Carolina State Board Elections website, and numbers are going back, they're going forth, it's freezing, it's not going on. And really, the community has really responded to it. We've seen that a lot on Twitter.
Yeah, we've seen it both serious tweets and some funny tweets, some serious tweets saying that they don't know what their candidate is doing. They don't know what percentage their candidate's at. We've also got some funny tweets. For example, the director of Elon University's news bureau, Eric Towson, tweeted, "With 1 of 1 precincts reporting, my wife won the race to be head of household in tonight's primary. She's unopposed this fall." So obviously there is some jest in there, but that there is actually a serious problem with the County Board of Elections website.
And a lot of people are actually comparing this to Florida 2000. We said that before, but I've seen multiple tweets on this. Kelly McEwen, Florida 2000. I love election night's results. In all my years, I've never seen anything like NCBOE website tonight. #NC poll. So people really want to see what's going on, and they're getting very frustrated.
And apparently, according to some reports on Twitter, the Board of Elections is saying they're having a display side problem, in quotes, reporting election data tonight, which would indicate that it's only on the computer. Their numbers aren't actually wrong. It's just a displaying problem. So I think that's them just trying to make sure that everybody realizes they're not all over the place. They do know what they're talking about. It's just the website is incorrect here.
Yeah, it's actually quite entertaining to go through and look through all these tweets.
Absolutely.
Another one that I found that I find quite entertaining is #YouHadOneJob, NCBOE. So that's definitely something funny. But it is such a serious issue right now.
And so moving on, today's primary was just the first step on the way towards the general election on November 4th. We talked to political professor and Elon poll director Jason Husser, which we'll hear from later. But we're not going to hear from him right now. We're going to check the election maps right now, and we're going to see who's leading, where they're leading, and we're going to refresh, because that's good. See what numbers are coming in for the 6th district here. District 6, we've still got...
Seems about the same right now.
Yeah, about the same. For House of Representatives, District 6, we've got Phil Berger leading 33% to Mark Walker, who is 23%, and Elon's... the brother of Elon head coach for basketball, Zach Matheny, is at 11.9% of the vote. That's third place for the Republicans. And for Democrats in the House of Representatives, 56% is saying that Laura Field will be their candidate, but 43% says Bruce Davis. This is with 26.78 of the entire state reporting.
It's so great to see Zach Matheny up there. I know earlier when we talked to him, he was talking about how he had worked so hard on his campaign and how his brother was so proud of him. So it's very interesting to see him pull ahead of Bruce Von Cannon. But checking up more on the polls, let's see any updates. I'm just interested to see when we're going to have some more precincts reported on.
Yeah, it seems like there's been a pause in the precincts reporting, according, at least to the State Board of Elections website, which has not worked to its best ability tonight. Last update was at 8:34. It's currently 8:54. We're going to give an update on the Republican primary for Senate. Tom Tillis is leading Greg Brannon 44% to 27%. So that is over 40% for Tom Tillis, but it's close. You know, it was at 46% about 20 minutes ago.
It's getting so close. So right now we have about 710 out of 2,651 precincts that are reported right now. We really need to hear some more of those numbers, but it's very interesting on the numbers. Though they're changing, they are saying about the same range. Tom Tillis has stayed about in the 40% range almost this entire time, with Greg Brannon in about 27 in the 20s and Mark Harris in the teens.
That's only about 40% total reporting, so a lot could change within the next 60% as those precinct numbers do come in.
So we're actually going to now talk to we are not going to talk to Jason Husser, but let's see if there's any more updates on Twitter. I'm liking looking at this #NC poll as the Twitter feed that I am currently looking at. Let's see, it seems about 2 minutes ago someone actually tweeted that they're going backwards again in their vote counts, wondering when they're going to start going forwards again, because that would be nice to get some more results.
Sky Cowan's over here, our social media guru. Don't mean to put you on the spot here, but do you have any tweets for us that you're looking forward to?
Derek Waller, WNCN, as of 8/19, 27% reporting. Tillis at 45, Brittany at 28. But be warned, the state website has had some issues tonight. Yes, I am also seeing that all over Twitter with a #NC poll. Jason Husser was also tweeting about it. I was looking at his tweet earlier. saying that the precincts are all over the place on the website. So we're going to toss back to Al Drago.
Like, of course. Thanks, guys. It's still happening over here in Graham as the line now stretches 12 cars into Maple Street right behind me as election workers wait to turn in their election materials. Now, officially, only 9 out of the 37 precincts have officially sent their votes into the state, but all the polls are officially closed, and our final numbers for Alamance County should be in the record books within the hour. Thank goodness it's only 79 degrees out here as election workers have their windows down, their cars behind me, and they're enjoying the slight breeze in the air. And as the cars are now winding down, we're going to throw it back to you guys in the studio. I'm Al Drago at the Alamance County Board of Election.
Thank you, Al. For the latest news, be sure to like us on Facebook and follow. So thank you, Al. Al is awesome. He is actually our photographer, and he did such a great job reporting today.
Yeah, and Brianna McClendon went all the way to Charlotte for her reports from the Tom Tillis camp, and then we had Paige Peroso, who was over there in Raleigh at the Greg Brannon camp. And you know, before we get off the air at 9 p.m., we may not get all these results in, but you can certainly check them out at Elon Local News on Twitter or Elon Local News on Facebook. You can even like us on Instagram, Elon Local News. We're all over social media tonight. And Twitter is your place to go because apparently the Board of Elections website has kind of been all over the place. Opinions are going wild on Twitter as to what is actually going on. But right now, one more check of the results. Tom Tillis, with 44% reporting, he has the lead against Greg Brannon, who is at 27%. Again, that's real close. They don't want to get under 40 because then there has to be a runoff, and nobody wants to run off.
Nobody wants to run off.
Looking at the Democrat, yes.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I just keep checking Twitter, looking up on that. Hopefully the website keeps updating, but I did see someone tweet that says that it is now correct. We are starting to go up, so hopefully it will keep on going up.
Yeah,
and I'm interested to see what this is going to be reported on in the future, if this is something that is this is a very big thing that is not working.
Absolutely, and we'll just do one more check here at the House of Representatives, District 6. Phil Berger Jr. has 33.53%, and Mark Walker has 23.7%. That's for the Republicans. And for Democrats, it is Laura Field and Bruce Davis. Laura Field is up more than 10%, about 13% over Bruce Davis. And this is all with about 27% reporting. For the latest news, be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Also, be sure to check out our website at elonlocalnews.com for all the news and election results that matter to you. From all of us here at the Elon Local News, have a great night, Elon.